You've already touched the light. But then, why do you still feel like you're sinking into darkness? Maybe no one knows about it. Maybe no one sees what's going on inside. On the outside, you're strong. You're the person who smiles, who gives advice, who keeps going even when everything inside you wants to stop. But inside, there is a silence that screams, a pain that you hide even from God. And no matter how much you've sought healing, no matter how much you've touched something sacred, there are still nights when you feel broken, invisible, empty. Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters. But what happens when the light comes in and even then, you still bleed in the dark?" This is what nobody talks about. You have had glimpses of awakening, moments when something came through you with such peace that you thought, "Now yes, I've found the way." Maybe it was a deep meditation, a book, a meeting, a prayer. Maybe you cried like never before, felt your soul open, felt the presence of the divine. But days later, there you were again, empty, disconnected, anxious, repeating the same patterns, the same pain, the same cycle. And then, a voice whispers from inside, "What's wrong with me? Why is it so difficult to sustain the light? Why does it seem like the more I seek healing, the more I am confronted by my own darkness?" Nobody tells you this, but the darkness you feel is not the opposite of light. She is the path to her. There is a wound in the soul that cannot be healed with ready-made phrases. It needs to be crossed, felt, loved, and many of us want the transformation without the crossing. We want heaven without touching our personal hell. We want peace without facing the emptiness we have always carried. Have you noticed how this spiritual search has become yet another form of self-demand? Another weight on your shoulders? Another invisible charge? I need to be light. I need to vibrate high. I need to be healed. But what if I told you that true light is not born of effort? What if Rumi was right when he wrote, "You have to keep breaking your heart until it opens"? Maybe what you feel today is not failure. Maybe it's the beginning of the opening. Maybe this is the moment you stop running away and decides to look inside with courage, with love. You touch the light, yes, and that's why the darkness hurts more now. Because now, you know there is something beyond the pain. You know there is another reality, but this reality will not be given to you without you going deep, deep in the soul, deep into what you still avoid, deep into what you learned to ignore to survive. The spiritual world is not an escape, it's a crossing, and the light does not come to comfort you. She comes to reveal you. That's why you still feel this pain. So even after you wake up, you still fall. It's not because you're failing, it's because you're being called to go deeper, further on, beyond the masks, beyond beliefs, beyond everything you thought was light, but was just fear disguised as healing. You are not going back. You are being invited to cross. And this invitation is sacred. This is where everything starts to change. But first, you need to recognize something that no one taught you to look for. But first, you need to recognize something that no one taught you to look at. There is a type of pain that has no name. She's not loud. She's not dramatic. She is silent and constant. She lives in the empty spaces between "it's okay" and "I want to disappear." It is the pain of someone who has seen heaven, but still lives carrying the rubble of the hell that was created within them. Have you ever felt this? That feeling of being tired, even when you just woke up, of giving yourself, and still feeling like no one sees you, of trying to be strong, and still not recognizing yourself in the mirror anymore. This pain is invisible, and that's why she consumes so much. But now, she is being seen. Now, she is being welcomed. Because this video is not just a message, it's a mirror, a whisper from the soul saying, "You are not alone." If any part of this beginning spoke to you, if you felt like someone finally put into words what you couldn't explain, write in the comments, "I have touched the light, but I still carry shadows." This sentence is a portal, a key, one step towards the beginning of your liberation. And if you feel like you need to continue this journey with me, leave your like, subscribe to the channel. Here, each video is a letter from the soul, a reminder that your pain has a purpose, and that you don't have to go through this alone. Now that your soul is open, let's talk about what consumes you the most, the pain that no one sees, but that inhabits your every gesture. Now that your soul is open, let's talk about what consumes you the most, the pain that no one sees, but that inhabits your every gesture. Maybe you've felt this way lately. You've been searching for answers. You've been immersing yourself in books, videos, prayers. You try to stay present, aware, vibrating high. Meditate every day, pray before bed, write in your soul's notebook, trying to understand what still holds you back. But the truth that insists on returning is always the same. Peace never lasts. It comes like a soft sigh, and then it's gone, as if it were just a momentary relief and not a home. As if the divine touch you felt wasn't strong enough to transform the pain that still insists on living inside you. And you ask yourself, why? Why, even when we have glimpses of light, does darkness return as if nothing has changed? It's as if something in you already knew the path but couldn't stay on it. As if his soul had a memory of healing, but his body, mind, and heart were still trapped in trauma, in absence, in what was experienced and never truly understood. And here's what almost no one says. That emptiness you feel, that feeling of not being seen, not being chosen, not being truly loved, did not start now. It is old. It comes from times when you didn't even know what pain was. It comes from the first few times you tried to be you and were ignored. The first times he loved and was not loved back. Of the moments when you waited for something and no one came. And since then, something in you has learned to survive. He learned to silence his soul to be accepted. He learned to adapt to the world, even if it cost him his truth. Today you seek light, but he still carries the shadows of what he lived in silence. And these shadows have a voice. They have memories. They have strength. They whisper between the lines of every relationship you try to build. They appear in the choices you make, in the silences you accept, in the emotional crumbs you try to transform into banquets of love. You touch the light, yes, but you still live in fear that it will go away. And so unconsciously he sabotages himself. It takes away what is good. Hold on to what hurts you. Stay where you are not seen. Insists on being enough where it was never a priority. It's a cycle, and he is invisible to the eyes of others. But inside you, it is a prison that has no walls, but bars. And this prison is made of silent memories, of unnamed absences, of accumulated deficiencies, of a love that you offered so purely, but that was ignored, exchanged, forgotten. So even when you get closer to the light, you still feel cold, because deep down, a part of you doesn't believe you deserve to stay there. He doesn't believe he can be welcomed without having to fight. You don't believe that true love, the kind that doesn't hurt, doesn't charge, doesn't demand, can be real for you. Then the emptiness returns, the fear returns, the feeling of not belonging returns, and everything that seemed healed opens up again. But it's not a relapse, it's revelation. The light you touched has not abandoned you. She just illuminated places that were still dark inside you. And now you see, it wasn't just sadness. It was self-longing. It was exhaustion from trying so hard to fit in. It was the weight of carrying the world on your shoulders and still smiling as if nothing was hurting. You can keep ignoring it. Or you can, for the first time, stop, close your eyes, and ask your soul, what are you trying to show me with this pain that won't go away? You can continue looking for formulas, techniques, ready-made answers. Or you can start listening to what your darkness has been trying to tell you for so long. You don't have to pretend anymore. You don't have to fight to be loved anymore. You don't have to erase yourself for someone to see you anymore. Because the truth is this: invisible pain only heals when you stop running from it, when you look into the eyes of what you've avoided most, and finally allow the light to enter where it hurt most. But that takes courage, requires presence. It requires a kind of self-love that you may never have experienced before. And that's what we need to talk about now. About the deep root that maintains this cycle of emptiness, rejection, and emotional suffering. About why you still can't break free, even though you know there's something bigger waiting for you. Before I continue, I want to invite you to do something that could be the first step towards your liberation. Right here in the comments. My pain is not invisible. I see it. This sentence is yours. This act of naming is a key. And sometimes it all starts when we allow ourselves to be seen, even if it's just by ourselves. And sometimes it all starts when we allow ourselves to be seen, even if it's just by ourselves. But seeing is not easy. Looking within takes courage, because what lies at the root of pain is not just suffering. It's everything you've repressed to keep existing, everything you hid to be accepted, everything you swallowed in silence, day after day, until you no longer knew who you were. Rumi said, "You have to keep breaking your heart until it opens." And that is one of the hardest truths of the spiritual journey, because it shows that the path to the light inevitably passes through darkness. You don't become enlightened by denying what you feel. You become enlightened by going through what hurt, with awareness. But what I see most are souls exhausted from searching so much. People who have already touched the light, have already felt their soul vibrate, have already experienced peaks of consciousness, and yet they continue to suffer from the same emotional patterns, the same destroyed relationships, the same crushing internal silences. And then comes the cruel thought, is there something wrong with me? Was I not made for peace? Has God forgotten me? But no, the darkness you feel is not a sign of spiritual failure. It's just the ego trying to survive, while the soul asks for surrender. Yes, surrender. Because what you are experiencing now, however painful it may be, is part of the alchemy, part of the journey that transforms wounds into wisdom, that transforms absence into presence, that transforms pain into light. The ego wants control, want to understand, want formulas, want guarantees. You want everything to make sense, but the soul just wants you to feel. May you stop running away from yourself. May you recognize that everything you seek outside already pulsates within. But to access this, you need to let the character die. That character you created to protect yourself. The version you show to the world. The one that seems to be okay, that says, I can do it, I can overcome it, I don't need anyone. But deep down, I just wanted to be held. I just wanted love. I just wanted to be seen. As long as this mask is in control, the light you touched will continue to appear distant. Not because she abandoned you, but because you still haven't allowed yourself to be who you really are. Without fear, without a facade, without a shield. There is a part of you that wants healing, but doesn't want to feel. Wants peace, but rejects pain. Wants love, but sabotages himself every time it comes near. And all of this is understandable, because you learned to survive this way. He learned that feeling is dangerous, that loving is risky, that trust hurts. But now the call is different. What's hurting you today isn't just the absence of light. It is the resistance to letting the light reveal what is still hidden. And this resistance is what imprisons. You can repeat 1,000 mantras a day. You can light incense, drink sacred teas, and participate in retreats. But if you keep running away from your raw, naked, emotional truth, nothing will change. Because true spiritual awakening is not pretty. It's confusing. It's chaotic. It's lonely. It's when you find yourself stripped of everything that gave you security, and yet, you choose to continue. The spiritual root of your pain is not something external that needs to happen. It's not about the arrival of an ideal relationship, nor the recognition you've been waiting for, nor the happy ending you envision. The root is the separation between who you are and who you learn to be in order to be loved. As long as this distance exists, there will be pain. As long as this disconnect between your essence and your persona continues, there will be emptiness, because you were not born to live a life that does not represent you. You did not come into this world to repeat patterns of emotional suffering and spiritual abandonment. You are here to remember, to return, to reunite with your soul. And it starts now, with that look inside, with this recognition that pain is not your enemy. It is your messenger. She screams where you still got lost. It burns where you have still forgotten who you are. And if you listen carefully, you will realize what you feel now is your soul asking to be freed from the prison of the ego. She doesn't want you to pretend anymore. She wants you to live with truth, with courage, with vulnerability, because only then can the light you have already touched remain. It can inhabit every cell, every choice, every silence. But for that, you need to go through the darkness with your eyes open, with a surrendered heart, with the soul present. And when you do that, something changes, not outside, but in here, in that place where no one has ever touched you, but where the light has always been waiting for you. Before we continue, I want to extend a sincere invitation to you. If any part of this moment spoke to your soul, if something here ignited something inside you, write in the comments, "I no longer run away from my truth." This sentence is a pact, a beginning, a reminder that you are here to awaken, and that darkness is not the end. It's the portal, and that darkness is not the end. It's the portal. But to cross that portal, you need to accept something the spirit world rarely tells you, something that breaks expectations, that dispels illusions, and that, for that very reason, liberates. Light does not heal. The light reveals. Reveal everything you still hide. Reveal what you pretended to forget. It reveals the exact points where the pain still pulsates, where the soul still bleeds, where the ego still tries to control what could only be surrendered. This is the key that many reject, the truth that few accept, because it doesn't promise immediate comfort nor superficial miracles. She takes you inside, to the core of the pain, to the place where there is no more escape, no more distraction. You are not regressing. You are being invited to descend deeper. And although everything inside you screams for relief, the call now is different. It's time to stop running. It's time to allow the light to illuminate not only the beautiful parts of your spirituality, but especially those that you hide even from yourself. Because it is there, only there, that true healing begins. Healing doesn't come when you feel good. It comes when you are able to stay present, even when everything seems to be falling apart inside. It arises when you look at the pain, and instead of denying it, say, "I see you." When you look in the mirror of your soul, and instead of wanting to erase scars, you choose to understand what they came to teach you. This is the hidden key, the awareness that light in itself is not the end of the road. She is the beginning of the journey of revelation, because as long as you seek spirituality as an escape from pain, it will remain an emotional makeup. As long as you try to use mantras as walls, rituals as crutches, and pretty words as disguises for your raw truth, nothing will hold. True spirituality is radically honest. She doesn't ask you for perfection. She invites you to her presence. She wants you to surrender, not hide. She tells you, bring all your pain, bring your mess, bring your anger, your fear, your insecurity, because that's where the alchemy begins. And maybe you're exactly at that point right now. The point where everything seems dark, even after so many awakenings. The point where you no longer feel anything, even though you know everything. The point where even the silence of the soul feels heavy, rather than sacred. This is not failure. This is spiritual maturity. It's when the shine fades so you can see the essence. It's when the answers stop coming from outside, and the only voice that matters begins to echo within. And that voice whispers, you don't need to understand. You just have to allow it. Allow to feel. Allow to fall. Allowing you to cross without knowing where it will lead. Because only those who allow themselves to go through their own night are able to be born whole the next day. Not as someone who has overcome everything, but as someone who is united with everything that was fragmented within him. Do you want healing? So stop looking for shortcuts. The pain you feel is not there by chance. She is taking you exactly to the point where your soul was forgotten. And there, in that place you swore you would never return to, lies the key to your freedom. For real, not rehearsed, self-love. For true, not performative, spirituality. For the silence that heals, not the one that suffocates. But this key is only revealed to those who choose to descend, not for punishment, but because true heaven is found in the depths of the soul, not in the heights of the mind. So if you feel like you're going back to old places, reliving pains you thought were healed, questioning everything you believed you were, no, you're not coming back. You are being prepared to finally inhabit yourself in truth. There is no healing without confrontation. There is no light without exposure. And there is no peace without going through inner chaos. Healing doesn't happen when you learn something new. It happens when you accept feeling what you've always avoided. When you stop running away from yourself. And he begins for the first time to walk alongside his shadow, without rushing to erase it. That's where everything changes. When you trade control for trust, the effort for delivery, the demand for compassion. And he finally understands that he no longer needs to pretend to be okay to be worthy of love. You have already touched the light. Now, let it reveal where you still need to go back. Return not to get lost, but to rescue parts of yourself that were trapped in the dark. Before I continue, I want to propose something to you that goes beyond words. If this made sense to you, if you felt that this key is also yours, leave it here in the comments. I allow the light to reveal my truth. This phrase is more than an expression. It's a choice, a silent declaration that you are ready to cross over, without running away from yourself. You allowed the light to reveal your truth. But what now? Now you are faced with the most difficult part, living this truth. Because knowing the key is one thing, turning the key and opening the door is another. Perhaps you have experienced this in one of those moments we call awakening. Maybe it was on a retreat. On those days when you disconnect from the world, close your eyes, breathe differently, and something bigger passes through you. You feel your soul open, feel your body light. You feel a peace you haven't felt in a long time. And for a few moments he believes, now everything has changed. Or maybe it was in a simple prayer. One of those where you cry quietly, without pretty words, without rituals. Just a sincere conversation with the invisible. And suddenly, a gentle presence surrounds you. You feel like you've come home. Or it was in that moment of silence. The house was empty. You looked into nothingness and felt everything. Something inside you aligned. And for a brief moment there was no pain, no pressure, no fear. Just you and the soul that was always there. These moments are real. They are spiritual seeds planted deep within your being. But what nobody tells you is that they are not the end. They are just the beginning. Because days later, without warning, the emptiness returns. Anxiety returns. The fear, the doubt, the old thoughts. Everything seems to return. And with them, the feeling of failure. You think, oh, shouldn't I be better? Why do I keep repeating the same patterns? Could that awakening have been just an illusion? No, it wasn't an illusion. But it wasn't a miracle either. It was an invitation. And now, the cycle of healing demands continuation. You have been touched by the light, but now you need to learn to inhabit it. You need to learn to live it in the dark days, in the banal moments, in the situations where nothing seems spiritual, but everything is. Before you expected a miracle, that upon touching the light everything would transform instantly, that the pain would disappear, the traumas would dissolve, the relationships would adjust themselves. But the real miracle is not external. It's your decision to stay awake even when everything seems asleep. Then you understand, this is not an end point. It's a process, and the process is imperfect. It's human. It's confusing. It is deeply spiritual for exactly that reason, because it doesn't take you away from the pain. He teaches you to walk with it, to embrace your wounds as sacred parts of your path, accepting that spiritual growth is not linear, nor clean, nor always pretty. It is by returning to old places that you practice the new look. It is during emotional relapse that you practice acceptance. It is in the repetition of patterns that you realize where you are still carrying the past. Maybe you're experiencing this right now. Maybe you're in a relationship where you feel like you give too much and receive too little. Maybe you're stuck with someone who's already gone inside, but you insist on keeping them close. Maybe you're waiting for a message that doesn't arrive, a gesture of love that doesn't come, an apology that never will, and you know you deserve more. You know, but it remains there, as if something in you still hasn't convinced itself that it can leave. This is not weakness. It is the soul struggling to remember its own worth. It's the wounded child inside you waiting for a kind of love you may never have received. But now, you have something you didn't have before. Awareness. You know where it hurts. You know why it hurts. And that changes everything. Because now you no longer act automatically. Now, you observe, sit down, allows. And in that allowing, healing happens. Not like a magic snap, but as a silent and profound process. Healing happens when you choose, in the midst of chaos, not to abandon yourself. When you take a deep breath, you feel your heart tighten, and instead of running away, you stay. You stay with you. You listen to yourself. This is how the light is fixed. Not with big rituals, but with small acts of presence. When you choose not to send that message to someone who ignores you. When you say no, even though you're afraid of losing. When you stop begging for love disguised as attention. When you honor your solitude, even if it hurts. Every time you do this, something in you aligns, something in you comes home, something in you heals. And little by little, the cycle of pain is replaced by a cycle of truth. Not perfect, but real. Not without pain, but with awareness. You begin to realize that true awakening is not the moment when everything changes. It's the moment you decide to stay, even when everything seems the same. Because there, in the daily life of the soul, the light learns to stay. And when it stays, you no longer need to chase peace. You become the peace that remains, even when everything around falls apart. If this touched something inside you, write here in the comments, "I remain even when everything seems the same." This phrase is your anchor, your reminder that the spiritual path is not about never falling again. It's about always getting up, with more truth. You stayed, even when everything seemed the same, and perhaps without realizing it, that was exactly when everything started to change. It's subtle, almost invisible, but something in you is reconfigured when you decide not to run away anymore. When, in the face of pain, instead of running, you stay. You feel it. You breathe with it. And little by little, it stops dominating you and begins to reveal you. This is the sacred moment of change. There is no sound of trumpets. There is no inner party. There is silence. There is presence. There is a stillness that seems to say, "I'm still here. And maybe I always have been." This moment is not about overcoming pain. It's about not getting lost in it. It's about remembering, in the midst of the storm, that you are more than what you feel, more than what you lost, more than the cycles you repeated, more than the loneliness he carried. You are not lost. You are being reborn in layers. And like every rebirth, this one hurts too. It hurts because you have to die to what you were, for the versions you created to be accepted, for the characters you used to avoid being abandoned, for the dreams he had just to feel loved. And each layer that falls is scary, because with it you say goodbye to certainties, of links, of stories, of selves that seemed real, but were actually just responses to fear. But it is in this undressing that its essence begins to emerge, not as something new, but as something that was always there, waiting for you to have the courage to return. Rumi reveals, don't settle for other people's stories. Awaken your own legend. And maybe you've lived this far through other people's stories, of the expectations they placed on you, of the roles they taught you to play, of the promises that said they would make you happy, but only made you sick inside. Maybe you believed you needed to be strong all the time. That feeling too much was weakness, that not being enough was your mistake, and that healing would come when you were more, when you gave more, when you deserved more. But that is not your legend. That's the story they told you, and now it's time to write your own, to stop being a supporting character in other people's lives, and take on the leading role in your own. Because yes, you have already touched the light, and now, you need to learn to carry it within yourself. This light will no longer come from outside. It won't come from a new love, not even a new course, not even a new guru. This light is yours. It is silent, it's firm, and it's waiting for you to recognize it as part of your being, not as a visitor, but as home. Carrying the light within yourself is different from seeking it. It's knowing that even on days when everything falls apart, you still have a point of peace in your chest. It's trusting that even when everything seems lost, you can close your eyes and find shelter within. It's realizing that even when no one understands you, your soul does. This is freedom, not the illusory freedom that the world sells, but the freedom of no longer having to erase yourself to fit in, of not needing to mold yourself to be loved, of not needing to beg for presence, because you have already learned to be yours. The shift in consciousness happens when you no longer need to prove anything, nor justify yourself, nor be perfect, not spiritual all the time. It happens when you can be human and still feel divine. It's when you recognize yourself whole, even with flaws, even with scars, even with bad days, because now you know, none of this diminishes you. On the contrary, it expands you. You are no longer the one seeking light outside. You are the one who offers it, to whomever approaches, to those who get lost, to those who need it. But it starts within, in the way you talk to yourself, in the way you welcome yourself on days when your mind screams and your heart is silent, in the way you choose, each morning, to remain true to yourself, even when no one is looking. This is the power of carrying the light. It doesn't make you immune to pain, but it makes you wise enough to know that she is a part of it too. You begin to understand that the soul does not seek happy endings. She seeks wholeness, and wholeness only comes when you stop dividing your life between what is light and what is shadow, and it starts to integrate, to accept, to hug. You are a being in transition, and now, for the first time, he is crossing with awareness. You are no longer fooled by empty promises. No longer fool yourself with quick cures. He no longer holds on to those who cannot see his soul. You are learning to choose, and that changes everything. Your life begins to align with your truth, and everything that was heavy begins to dissolve. Not because it disappeared, but because you changed. And when you change, the world around you has no choice but to rearrange itself. If this touched something in you, if you felt that this change is also yours, comment here. My conscience will never go back. This sentence is like a mirror. It brings back to you the memory that once awakened. The soul is never again content with less than truth. If you've come this far, it wasn't by chance. Something in you felt, something in you recognized, and maybe something in you has finally awakened. Don't run away from your own soul anymore. The light you touched is the same one that awaits you in the depths of your pain. If this content touched something deep within you, leave your like. He helps this message reach other souls who are also in the process of awakening. And if you are not yet part of this community of healing and truth, subscribe to the channel now. Here, each video is a letter to your soul. Every word, a mirror. Every silence, an invitation. And if you feel like it's not over yet, it's because it's not over. The next video is already appearing here on the screen. Click on it. Continue your journey. The journey is just beginning.